5 seconds.
I'll send you a big map that you can see.
Why not?
And then if you can bring it up on your thing, and I'll come with you, my friend. I'll come with you to my friend.
Okay, now we are.
So happy to see you.
We're calling this meeting to order. Thank you all. The October 16th Plan 2040 Citizens Advisory Committee. Thank you. Appreciate you all being here tonight, especially on a traditional Wednesday rainy night. I don't know why it always rains on our meeting nights, but it seems to. So, a couple things to get started with. First, I apologize, my glasses are on. I have a raised cornea, so you will see I have problems with my eyes. And so, if I can't read it, I'm going to need some help. So, you have the agenda. We have a lot to discuss. We're getting into the meat of things today. And so, I'm going to turn it over to Cindy. We're not here to wordsmith. We're here to continue and go forward. So let's get and remember these are goals, strategies, objectives. We're going to be on this for a while, so we will have time to discuss it. But you've seen the calendar being adopted and extended already. What? So hopefully you've done your homework and you're ready to jump right in.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So just a little bit of background. These goals, policies, and strategies for tonight are environmental protection, resource conservation, and water quality. The water quality portion of this will fit into a required water resources element that's mandated by the state, and the environmental will fits into what's called the sensitive areas element that's required by the state that we produce with our DEP. These have been formulated over a period of time with our county project team. Tonight I have two of those members here with me. Chris Murphy from the Department of Public Works and Laura Layton also from the Public Works. So if you have specific questions, they're here to help answer those. Also, I know some of you have brought up some information or wanted to see a little more on climate change. That's going to be in a separate chapter. We'll go over those separately. Some of them will show up throughout other sections just because there's a lot of overlap. It's a little bit hard to, if you saw the plan outline, it's a little bit hard to figure out where things flow best, but right now this is sort of our best outline that we have. And certain things will fit into community facilities, but then we'll pull them out because of park and recreation, for example. Well, parks serve as open space and conservation areas, but they also serve as community facilities. So we'll work that out as we go along. You know, Alan had brought up a point about these goal strategies don't have a timetable and measurement involved with them. The timetable is not going to come until the very end. That's part in the outline. There's an implementation plan. We'll take all of the strategies and figure out, the county's going to have to figure out, once we have all of them, how much is it going to cost, you know, in terms of fiscally and in terms of the staff resources, and then lay out a timetable. So that's going to be at the end. That's missing here intentionally. Measurement's going to come in several forms. Some of it will be numeric and be stated directly in the strategy, but others will happen over time. When this DDP gets adopted, what lacked the last time, which is why we put in that plan outline a whole section on measurement, that will occur over the 8-year period following the adoption of the plan. It'll be an annual report, and we'll goal, each policy, and each strategy.
Can I comment on what you just said? I'm looking at the section that says measuring our success. I'm missing something here. You talk about an annual report plan, but then you have a 4-year report going. Why would you need a 4-year report if you're doing one every year?
Well, the annual, they're gonna be different. Annual report would be a plan monitoring. So the strategies, and we've laid them out. Say, for example, there's certain ones that need to be done within a 2-year time frame. There'd be a status given, and it needs to be adjusted and make note of that. The 4-year report is performance monitoring. So just what we were talking about, measurement. How well are these strategies that have been implemented? How well are they implementing the goal?
So the other thing is, I mean, there should, in this outline, there ought to be something that says we're going to develop an implementation schedule.
That's above that, there's an implementation plan. It's part of the action plan and your GDP.
I don't see the words that guarantee that's going to happen.
Well,
I think we need real
implementation action committee, if you don't trust the county government to do it.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Well, under implementation plan, letter F,
Yeah.
implementation action committee, that's a recommendation for a citizen-based.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there needs to be a specific statement. We are going to develop a schedule, and we're going to work to the schedule.
This is the implementation plan that'll have in the schedule. And you'll see it, it'll be laid out before we take it to council to be adopted.
Where in section 2 there, it doesn't say schedule, the word schedule, develop schedule, it doesn't.
Timeline. And italic, implementation plan and timeline. Include goals in the top and the county meetings and any partners that we feel are necessary.
And just, emphasize the reason I'm asking the questions and making the point is that 2019, the latest plan was 10 years ago, and we haven't seen any.
We're not going to go back.
We're not going back,
No, we need to move, we need to
forward.
take
And
and
this is
roll
what we're
those
recommending
goals
to move
into what
forward.
we're going forward. You don't get a free lunch here. Those are already on the books, let's roll them into where we're at now. And maybe by 20 years, we'll be able to implement.
We are considering the goals, policies, and strategies that were in the previous plan that were not adopted, as well as
If they're still applicable.
Right.
And if they're still
Well,
attainable. So
And there's
that's a
some that
whole.
definitely are in our area.
Okay, well, that's not what we're looking at for today, and this is gonna be part of the GDP, which we.
Well,
Before the county council approves.
I'm concerned about your statement about wordsmithing, because words, when you're in Board of Appeals, a hearing officer, every word that's in these documents is very important.
Okay, so let's get started. So,
I have another question too.
Sure.
On all of these, like the, sensitive streams and all that, is there a priority stream plan? I mean, are there, behind each of these, is there a current assessment, what's here now, what we need to improve, what are the priorities?
like through watershed protection,
Yeah.
through each of there's a watershed implementation plan for each of the watersheds out of,
Motion detected at your front.
I believe there is a list of characterized streams, as part of the watershed group, has that.
part of watershed protection, and they are on our project team, but not sure.
So they should be referenced here, according to the watershed plan which has been developed.
We can add that in as a note and we'll discuss it with the project team. I don't wanna add something that may not make sense.
Right, but
where are
experience
you
was,
asking, that
it was particularly about, well, a lot of the goals have that, you know, what's the existing forest cover, where is that study, and the tree canopy, and what are the priorities, and a lot of these, it's very vague.
Can we try to go in order, because you're jumping around on this?
Well,
And I think it'd be really helpful if each one of us was where you're at, if you've got particular interests. Because we jumped to halfway through, just to talk about implementation a moment ago. Can we at least start from the start?
Yeah, that's a good point, because Patrick is gonna be tracking these minutes, so we.
I mean, if we're gonna do the draft outline and talk about the vision and jump into action plan, let's at least do it in order and then bring
Well,
up
I
your
think
concerns
you
after
make a
that.
good point, because I'm not sure I agree with the board.
Okay, well, let's
The
at least
order's
talk.
not, no, wait a minute, the order is not the order of priority. The order is, we're starting with environmental protection first. The goals are not in necessary priority order. Remember, we talked about that, she just said that, all that's gonna be determined later on. We just need to get the goals and recognize what the strategies are going to be to obtain those goals. So the first thing we want to add is in here, and we will add it as a side note, that when we're referring to streams, and it would be really just streams, according to the watershed priority.
Well, I don't know that I agree with that.
Well, we'll
Yeah,
research and we'll
because
find out.
Because we
If
have,
it's done,
I mean, it could be, we have 3 different levels, perennial, intermittent, and as you see here, right now, we have existing buffer, 100-foot buffers on each of those streams. And here we're asking for, looking at, a different class and adding a buffer on those. So this is also, not just as priorities. And you mentioned, you know, some of these areas, where are the tidal wetland, et cetera, that resource policy, that resource sensitive policy area that you all were working on, a few weeks ago, that's based on our best information that we have that incorporates all of our sensitive areas. We don't necessarily have studies that have ground truth all of these features.
Cindy, on the note that you sent out, there were 3 documents you wanted to print out. These are identical, but one is edited, and there was no explanation as to why.
Yeah, I printed this yesterday and I didn't get the one that we're now.
Alan went through and made some comments, and I pile on that. So,
Yeah, I don't know what you're.
that's different than what they're talking about, I believe.
Yeah, this is the difference. Okay, this is what I printed last night, and this is what she's got. So I don't have.
And so that's something that Alan and, Anthony have
They're suggesting.
suggested, yeah.
So that, because it was, sorry, I misunderstood you, because we didn't think you would have seen it in time.
Right,
It was
and
provided.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Could you provide an explanation when something like this comes in? Because
I don't know, there's,
it's confusing.
so we just did. Those came in
Yeah.
today as suggestions, and we'll go over those. I mean, that's.
Right,
that's-
but the focus is on the original document, not the one that Alan and I made. So I think you have to start from that base.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm not even sure how, is that handed out?
And when we, yeah. Everybody,
What I'm gonna refer to as the red line document was not provided, I'm mistaken. If he had the opportunity John had the opportunity to read it and print it out and bring it with him.
No, actually, she did.
Okay.
But anyway.
Anyway, so, but we are going with the original for the time being
Correct.
that everybody has in front of them,
Right.
okay? So we're still on the first page. So, okay, I have a question. Under strategies, the last line from the bottom, redefine the county's open space zoning district to separate limited active uses from conservation uses. Are there any other uses that we need to define or separate that should also be addressed? And I'm speaking up since we're on tape, remember. And we have a lot of people watching tonight live that weren't able to make it.
So right now, our open space district, zoning district doesn't have, well, there's a zone, it lists out the uses that are permitted in it, but it's not necessarily conservation. What we would like to do is separate conservation, which would be area set aside for protection, could include passive recreation areas, or passive parks, but not active. So right now, there's some active recreation parks that are open space zone, there's.
Right.
Meaning
It's been an issue.
There's a difference between a ball field
Right.
and a forest.
Right.
And right now, they're both designated as
Open space.
And I
Okay.
wholeheartedly agree with this.
Right, and I'm just wondering
Okay.
if there's anything else that maybe, and I am not familiar with, but that would be good. Billy?
I have two things. One is to respond to the redefining the open space. When you do that, or before you do that, you need to take a look at your program open space funding acquisition from the state of Maryland. Because right now the county gets millions for their piece of program open space in the state. And while it's commingled, I'm not, I know that there's a lot of pressure to provide ball fields like in growing areas. And I don't know how that linkage works as the county talks to the state. So when you do your redefinition, make sure that it is compliant with the way you receive that money so that you don't inadvertently lose millions of dollars.
Yes, we will. I know that in the past, we've tried to recommend some areas be downzoned to OS that would fall with program open space money.
Right.
Parks.
But there is between active uses and non-active uses, politics is rife with who gets the money. And so when we go to an ideal thought, and we just want to make sure we're not going to be losers at that table. And then I had one other thing. I don't know how to add it. And I'm not talking about global warming, I'm talking about sea level rise, which is a mathematical certainty. In the mid-Atlantic region, sea level is rising 7 millimeters every year. That's 1 foot in 40 years. And it is, at federal and state levels, it is a scary and catastrophic problem, and it will be for this county. And if this document is the plan for the next 20 years, sea levels in all of our tributaries will rise a half foot. And it's going to cause very significant problems that we should be looking at now. And I don't know how you want to phrase it, whether you create or you establish or you investigate, but we really should have sea level rise here, because within 10 to 20 years in this county, it will be the #1 problem, particularly on budget, of how you're going to elevate roads, how you're going to save shorelines, etc. So I would ask that you include sea level rise, and then I'll also forward you a ton of stuff from like the Board of Public Works of what the state of Maryland is scared about.
Okay, so we are going to address sea level rise. It will be in the chapter 2, so under, where we have planning
Right.
for the built environment, under.
Yeah, I'm just bringing it to your attention
Yeah.
to make sure it's included.
It is, where there's, says sustainability and it says climate resilience adaptation and hazard mitigation. Again, some recommendation, once we develop those, some of the strategies might end up under environment, I don't know until we have it all.
But I know in terminology, if you say global warming, you get a political fight.
Right.
If you say sea level rise, that's a settled argument.
Yes. So we also have, other than sea level rise, we're gonna address coastal flooding, which is different, and
Yeah.
business flooding, which is different. So those are all under the sustainability section. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to second sea level rise, but on open space, the state shares its money with the county. And the county has, not in legislation, but a percentage of this, the open space money that comes to the city. That based on the sales of property, and the city contributes an awful lot to the open space fund. That ought to be categorized. And my understanding on open space is that a percentage of it or split between active use ball fields and the other preservation land in different formats. So whether you want to look at those percentages that exist now and incorporate them eventually into the legislation, seems to me that it needs to be clarified.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry, hold on. That help?
Yeah.
A little bit? Dr. Doherty? Okay, that's good. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, I had another question. And I'm not sure where this fits in, but we talked about this before, the wetlands. And I know the policy has recently changed, and maybe you all can help me, that now there has to be a outside consultant that does the wetlands review.
MDE now has to come and verify the designation and expanse of wetlands if they're indicated on a site near where the development is going to occur. So MDE is the actually come down and verify.
Okay, because originally the wetlands survey was being done by the developer.
The civil engineer
Okay.
is responsible, and they send it to that drawing. But there were consistently
Wrong one, right.
wetlands that were not being
Okay.
identified fully.
And that's become code? Is that a
It's-
policy?
It's a policy.
It's policy?
It's a policy.
Okay. Okay.
Where are wetlands measured?
In the first, under non-tidal wetlands is where it's mentioned the first time, but I'm just bringing it up in general because I wasn't sure. That was the,
And it already has, just so you know, because I'm in that world, it's already made an impact.
oh, exactly,
I mean,
so,
it's sent several developers back to, or civil engineers back to the drawing
well,
board
they
to say,
got.
oh, okay, expand it a little bit.
Okay, I will take
Okay.
that note back. That most likely would have come out when we do planning for the built environment, and then if we move that, because of,
So,
it's
good.
different
Okay.
from county staff helping to develop these, and that would consent
Okay.
the staff. Well, do we wanna address, Alan had some changes, Anthony? No?
Do it. If you want to do it section by section.
Well, yeah, I think section by section.
Okay.
Yeah, that would make sense. Okay, I have
Do you want to summarize, Anthony? everybody has it, so it might be difficult to follow along.
Yeah, I'll try to paraphrase. So Alan, he's looking back at the goals, and he's asking the question, what is there to preserve, restore to what standard, and how is this measured? So he's looking more at the, so while the goal is there, the definition of what it means to preserve, enhance, or restore is what he has, that's his question. What are we trying to restore, to what degree, and how are we going to do that? Is kind of more of what he was asking for. So he was looking more for definitions or some of the verbiage. I think he had a question about the ephemeral streams. Again, looking for that definition. And then so any questions on that so far? Before I go
Yeah,
to
I
the
will,
Yeah.
I'll put these into an email for you.
Yeah, because some of it is asking questions on definitions, because you're looking through a lot of these, and some of it refers to policies, procedures, things in that nature, and without a understanding of that definition, what's behind it, some of it's a little unclear. So, and then here at the bottom, it says protect the Jabez Beach, Maggie Bog Complex, and other unique ecosystems. So his question was, how does this policy differ from all of the foregoing, except in that specific resources are named? If the GDP wishes to do something specific with these resources, the policy should state that explicitly. No growth or redevelopment only is permitted at the Jabez Beach. And he says recommended deleting unless the policy is made clear and specific.
And I made a note, it was interesting, what was the definition of unique?
Yes, and that was also part of this question. And then I added.
Yeah, some of this is difficult because you're not. So let me go back.
Yeah.
To these are just the goals, policies, and strategies,
Right.
which is really the core of the document.
Right.
But in each section, there'll be a summary of the issues that were defined. They'll talk about, it will talk about what, you actually could go back to the background report, the environmental background report that was presented to you several months ago. It talks about why these are unique systems. I don't want to take the environmental background report and put it in the plan because the meat of the plan, what's important, will get lost. And that's sort of an issue I have currently. So I'd like to be a little summarize it a little and refer people to that report for more information on specific things. But yes, these are unique ecosystems that we have in the county that have been identified.
Yeah. Because so when it comes to listing some of the strategies, one that was in there is that in there originally was evaluate whether environmental overlays should be established for unique, again, ecosystems. And so my addition was, would this be a good place to insert specific APFO zone overlays to protect some of that environmental, environmentally unique? Would that be, or could that be, or if it's not?
Well, that strategy that's listed already, that's evaluate whether those should be established.
Yeah.
Because I know that we have tried for the Jabez branch in the past and we're not successful at getting something adopted.
Yeah.
So,
we'll
try, but it's that's legislation. An overlay zone is going to be legislation.
Because I was thinking of something like what was presented a couple weeks ago, Peninsula Principles type of zoning overlay. It's really, the bigger meat of that is focused at unique environmental criteria. In this case, it was focused more on the peninsula and nature.
I would say that strategy, though, is fairly pointless. I mean, it doesn't, I don't think it's strong enough. I mean, it just says to evaluate it. It doesn't say evaluate it and then implement based on that evaluation. I mean, shouldn't there be some more definitive? Yes.
To follow along.
Right. I mean, so, okay, check the box, be evaluated. What did that do?
Development inherent, if we're gonna evaluate it, we would take the next step, if we wanna say it.
I think it needs to be explicitly said. Because I think that's part of the reason why a lot of us are here, is because over time, it hasn't been explicitly said. And so there's been a lot of leeway.
Does an overlay zone have to be passed through the council?
Yes.
So that was it for that section.
I'll just second what they said. I think you have to be very explicit, and if you want it done, you gotta say exactly what you expect to get done.
Ellen?
Definition of fisheries habitat protection zones, does that include oysters? And does that include seasonal spawning areas?
Not the definition of that.
Well, we need to, for look up something that.
Now with hyperlinks and that sort of thing, I mean, I know these are printed documents, but it might be useful if anything that has a very specific definition is in another color or italicized, so we understand that is a very specific definition of what that is.
Okay, that's a good suggestion.
You know, just to follow on with that is, I mean, one of the notes I made earlier today on the paper was that these documents should be readable by the general public. I mean, some of the terms, you know, people use, I'm not sure I totally understand. And I really think that would be very helpful, and that might help to clarify the intent of this body if we have it so it's readable by all.
Good. Because, you know, we're in the weeds, but for the general public, they don't have a clue.
And they should, and they should,
Right.
and they should have,
Yeah, but.
you know, they should have to flip back and forth. And I think that would be discipline us into doing a good job at defining what we intend.
So you're saying you want the definitions in the document?
You know, there's words in there, I keep, you know, some of the terminology, it doesn't read like English to me. I mean, one on the other document, priority preservation element. I'm not sure what that means.
Let me say something about this. Since you're talking about that, the line that we just talked about a moment ago, consider requirement of 25-foot buffer on ephemeral streams, you can easily say small offshoot streams. And that would really be the definition of what you're talking about with ephemeral. So, I mean, that's a term that maybe.
Well, and I
have a different meaning for ephemeral, right? It's a seasonal.
Okay, because I know a small creek right off.
So, I like, Kristen's stuff. If certain words are not known to the general public, then we can have a hyperlink that sends it to a definition versus changing,
Okay. Okay.
we're working in terms of.
I'm gonna take them down. Professionals.
Well,
Well,
no,
it's
this is
not
what
that,
Gary is saying.
They have specific meanings in regulations, so I wouldn't want that, that's
With
why,
real
yes,
definitions,
there's
there's
real
no code.
definitions in either state or county codes that we.
Okay,
use.
so online.
You know, but it is helpful if you point out some of these words,
Right.
that we can then make sure we have, a link that defines it.
Online, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's a good way to do it.
Are you going to do the same thing then for the Protected Shadows, branch, Manatee Bottom Complex and other unique ecosystems? Have a link to the other ones that are
We can do
included?
that, but as I said, it might help, when you go through these, that you have the background report with you, because it does discuss some of these.
No, I'm just saying for the people that are looking at it online, if they click on a link, they'll find all the other ones that you're talking about.
And what's missing, like I said, there'll be the summary that will discuss the issues and some of the, you know, why we have these, it'll link to the goals. It'll relate to the state vision that we have to do, our county vision. You know, there's a whole lot of text that'll go before these goals, policies, and strategies. It'll make it a little more clear than just trying to review these.
Is that in the works now?
Well, no, not yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's more true.
Part of it is, but not.
Emerald Springs, where do you include anything that has to do with reclaiming old stream beds? Where there once was a stream? And I asked them because, well, 2 stream beds minimally have already been redone in the city of Annapolis, so I would think by extension, the county might have some interest in some places. You know, when it's active environmentalists in reclaiming
So we're already
ancient
doing.
stream beds, so there's no place in here that could relate to that except in the 25-foot emerald stream.
Are you talking about the stream beds that are dry, being
Yeah,
active
they're
again?
gone, they don't exist, but
Well, but I
they
mean,
existed 50 years ago.
with the sea level rise, then they could become active streams.
They could. Well, that's a bit really different. That would be.
Yeah, I can't remember if we took it
That
out,
would be inundation.
because we're already
Yeah,
doing
right.
that. But we do stream restoration. It's a whole program that we have with watershed protection, branch for
Right.
Public Works. And each, as I said, each watershed has a plan and it talks about all the implementation. Matter of fact, you can go on the county's website and look at all the active stream restoration
Right,
projects.
but how is that dealt with in here?
It's an existing,
Existing
it's
policy.
dealt with already. It's something that's being implemented. So it's part of a, you know, former, it actually went back to the smaller plans, GDP, and it's something that's already being implemented. And then,
Right, but it's not identified in this section.
we're not gonna go, like, things that are already.
In place.
In place, we're not gonna add as a new strategy.
But it's a policy. It's not in code.
There's strategies, there's a whole, county department that is set aside to implement that program.
True, yes, but these are strategies that lead eventually to code revision or
Not
code.
necessarily.
And that's,
Some of it is
so my
programmatic, some of it
comments
is
are
code.
related to additions that might be future considered in code work, code language, as we get to that part.
Yeah, I don't think that is something that's codified.
Exists, if it exists as policy, shouldn't it be?
It's a
noted?
strategy. If we are restoring streets.
I don't think the answer to the question. I think we're not communicating.
I think because the department has already been established,
Yeah.
then we're looking forward
I think it does talk two different things.
Yeah, it's not,
Okay,
I mean, what she's saying is that this is an important thing. It can't just be somebody's whim that we're gonna do this, because that person may leave the department or retire. It has to be something that has, a lasting, effect.
okay, we will make a note of stream restoration.
I mean, we have a lot of streams that are dry today. I mean, there was a big stream going right through Arundel Mills, on down to the head of the Severn River. One day, they used to have tall ships in Elkridge. So if the sea rises enough, guess what? We may have Elkridge connected to the Severn River again.
There you go. Okay, and then we're moving on. Pat and then Kristen.
I have a question. Our stormwater regulations in the code are very, unsatisfactory, as we all know. The Broadneck Peninsula has so many waterfront owners cannot even use their boats any longer because there's so much silt that has, flowed into the creek from, farms and stock farms and agricultural. And, my folks are saying, what are we gonna do to dredge the silt that's coming from stormwater into our creek so that we're paying water for our taxes and can't use our boats anymore, and it's also affecting the flora and fauna of this area. I don't know how to put this in this document, but I feel I should mention it to see if anybody has any ideas. Because we just have silt, we know at Whitehall Creek, we never had a dredge, and we did get, some cooperation from the state and the county. But is it proper to put it?
so can we get, when we get to page 3, can we go, we'll look at the strategies. Stormwater strategies are on page 3, so.
But this is in the stream, I'm not talking about preventing stormwater, it's there already. And they,
You're talking about erosion control.
well, you got dirt, you got silt, it's already there.
Talking about restoration.
So you're talking about
I'm
restoration.
talking restoration.
So so not actually stopping the silt from getting in, silt's right there. Getting
Exactly,
that out.
it's there, well, stormwater management is another subject. But what do we do about what's there now, and what can I tell people, you know, with all the, I mean, we are dilatory in not having the proper rules and regs in place to stop this stuff flowing, stormwater regs.
Okay.
But what do we do to fix the problem?
Existing silt removal. Kristen,
Let's see, track cumulative wetland loss over time.
what page are you on?
Page 1,
Okay, what number?
it's under strategies.
The first goal? The first
Yeah,
strategy?
First goal. no,
In the
that's-
middle, track cumulative wetland loss over time.
And publish, and make reports publicly available.
Yeah, so Alan has suggested track, measure, and report, and I
Okay,
think
I'm
that's.
sorry, I didn't know that.
Track, measure, and report. Okay, anything else on number 1? On 1, going twice. Goal, number 2. Any changes?
Page 1.
Melanie,
On the back side of that page, revised development modification process for clearing priority forest retention areas consistent with state requirements. I don't have the language, but I think we should change consistent with state requirements. I think we should not limit ourselves to what the state may or may not be doing. It seems like it might preclude us from being more stringent.
so you
than the
can
state.
say consistent or above
As a minimum, how about as a minimum?
as the minimum.
Um,
Okay, as the minimum, good. Anything else? Okay, moving on, goal number 3.
Editorial thing on your last bullet point,
Uh-huh.
sort of small area plans.
Oh, thank you. Develop community forest plans with a.
Oh, small airplanes, thank you. Good, good, thank you. Okay, number,
Question.
yep,
Back on the first page, on the last summary,
first
about to
phase,
get that.
but second goal,
Second
okay.
goal, yeah.
Okay.
Says define priority forest retention areas in Article 17 include, and it lists a series of things. So are we saying that we're defining these, or we're mapping the elements? Include map green areas, wetlands.
So Article 17 lists out what is a priority retention area, and currently it doesn't have the map greenway. It doesn't have the green as a priority retention.
Okay. So it's the list
And
of
it's not, and
what
actually, I don't
priority
think
funding
it's,
are
I don't
provided
think
there.
priority retention area is actually defined in the code. So that's what that means, defining priority retention areas.
Okay. It's not mapped each one of these specifically. Is that what we want?
We do want the greenways mapped and included.
Well, a lot of these are already not
Some.
specified.
Yeah, that's what you like,
Trees.
like, original policy. I think that was what I was kind of getting at.
Yeah, right.
Until you did like an.
This means defining what priority retention area is and making sure that that's also, consistent with the article that lists out what is a priority retention area in the development process.
And will that be updated before, for this,
Everything going forward,
And for this policy of no net loss.
that's right, that's on here. That is number,
The second one.
yes.
So that's being established as a policy.
I'm just gonna, as long as everybody's finished, I was gonna put Alan and I's little edits. We're ready for that?
Yes.
Okay. So Alan made a really good point, under policies. The original establish a policy of no net loss of forest. So Alan's comment is, this policy effectively creates a zero growth GDP, because no forest could be removed if enacted in the law. This is a top level GDP concern that may be at variance with guiding strategies across the county being used to create the GDP. Fully implemented, this policy shifts all future development into redevelopment strategies. Personally, I don't know if I agree with that.
I would say
no,
that's false.
Yeah, I would say that's false. So, I'm just reading his edits. So, one of the other things he was concerned about, the third strategy, track forested areas preserved, planted, and lost and report status every year. He says, his comment was, this is not a strategy. I actually disagree. I said, I actually think this is part of the strategy, and that you have to know what you have so that you can track what needs to be replaced. So if you don't know what you have to begin with, then tracking is kind of a fool's errand at that point. And then some of the others were the fifth bullet statement. The other comments he had were again just for clarification purposes, nothing. That's it.
I wanted to ask two questions. These are the last two bullet points. Develop an urban forestry program and develop community forest plans. So this is just saying we're going to come up with an idea, but not necessarily implement it. In other words, not establish these programs.
We can say develop
And
and
implement.
establish.
And implement, yeah.
Develop, establish, and implement. Oh, we're doing it wrong. And we have a link to what urban forest program is. Community forest program. we'll link them so that people know what an urban forest program is and a community forest plan is. Kristen?
The same on, reforestation. What is reforestation? Is that a technical term? So there's a definition of what reforestation is. And then could you put track, measure, and report on that one as well?
Just the first bullet you're talking
Yeah,
about?
the first bullet. If you've got an inventory, then somebody's gonna use it to do something.
And you, okay,
Because
so
I
you want the
think that
definition?
exercise the first two thirds together.
You want definition of the reforestation, but what are you saying about tracking?
If you've got an inventory, somebody's obviously gonna do reforestation
I
on
think-
those properties.
I think what we're talking about is actually tying bullet point 1 and 3 together. Because if,
Well, this is very different, so that's an inventory of properties, they may not have woodland. This is where we reforest properties. That gets at the no net loss. You're going to develop in areas that are, say, urban, but, you know, where we're going to target growth and they have woods, and they could mitigate by putting it on parcels that aren't currently wooded. That's reforestation.
So in other words, they would be trading, they would be taking down some forests because they were gonna reforest another parcel. I have real problems with that, because reforestation to me is a complete misnomer. I mean, they plant trees, that's not reforesting. Forest is a much more complex ecosystem, and, it takes years to reforest them. I mean, I know they do it, but, so the idea here is to have an
But that's why
inventory.
we will also have listed priority retention areas. So areas where we want to preserve the forest as they are today.
I see.
And then not all forests are healthy or good older forests. They're strong, invasive.
I agree 100% with what you're saying. I think it's ridiculous what's going on now. We level, go in and bulldoze down acres and acres, and then you plant trees somewhere down there.
Individual trees.
I mean, that's all greed-based zoning and development. And I despise that.
Anything else on number 2? Okay, sold. Number 3. Expand, enhance, and continue to protect the county's greenways, open space, rural areas, and priority preservation areas. And I had a question, and I don't know where this goes, but where we talk about conservation easements, and making it harder to modify the standards, making conservation easement standards and harder to modify any of these easements. And another thing, I don't know exactly where it goes, is to elevate the preservation of sensitive environmental areas. Elevate the preservation of sensitive environmental areas.
yeah.
Sensitive environmental areas?
Or elevate them.
Yeah.
Well-
What would be a compliment there?
So that goes back to the first strategy. Under the first goal during the development process. We would have an inventory plan so that it would show all of our sensitive areas. and then the development envelope should be outside of that area. That's elevating.
I'm sorry, where are you?
That was the first, under the first strategy, under the first goal. And I think that there was, thought was to elevate the preservation of sensitive environmental areas to the same level as the 2009 GDP agricultural rural areas standards.
To the same level, can you say that again?
To elevate the preservation of sensitive environmental areas to the same level that were established in the 2009 GDP agricultural and rural area standards.
Been updated?
I have to go back and look at what a suggestion. Anything else on 3? Helen?
Yeah, and it's under the whole goal for enhance and continue to protect. But for a number of years, the Department of Natural Resources had a vision and a plan that all communities would be connected by walking, biking trails or access areas. And I don't know whether this goes in here or whether it goes in another subsection. But if we're talking about enhancing and acquiring, it ought to relate to the concept of connectivity.
And that's the definition of a greenway. And then the first bullet,
That's the definition of a greenway.
so our first bullet,
They are walkways also.
our 2002 master plan, greenways master plan, concentrated more on, the actual natural areas for wildlife habitat.
Yes.
And, we started on an update to that plan, which includes trail connections that are adjacent to the existing greenway, as well as some recreation areas and cultural areas. So it
Right,
expands
but
upon that and incorporates our regional trails, which connect to other places outside of Anne Arundel County. And also looks at the connection of the greenways outside of our county. So connecting to Calvert and Howard and Baltimore.
Right, but if you're talking about enhancing, meaning and putting in the capital budget some acquisition, it might be related to the concept of connecting communities throughout.
I'll check, I already think we have a capital budget item
Well,
for
I
that.
mean, you've got that in there, so.
Well, that one's specifically for land conservation, which we do not have. But we do
Well, I'm not
have one.
suggesting that the trails are related to conservation, I'm just saying that there has been a large vision by DNR to have connecting accesses with our communities, and they're not just
Right,
isolated.
and I think we
separate.
already have one, but I'll check with Parks to see if that's,
And then
if not, then.
somewhere in here or another, maybe they don't have that vision anymore, we gotta check.
Okay, anything else?
I just have another question, I'm sorry. In all these, lands that we're assessing, it's private and public lands are assessed? And if say there's a bog on the private property, that is in that's monitored, I mean, it's identified and, so if someone wants to sell it and develop it, that log is identified.
Yes, we have maps that show this. And they're included on the, resource conservation policy areas, that was part of the criteria for developing that policy area.
Okay.
The last
Got it.
bullet point,
Yep.
saying add a project in the capital budget for land acquisition. I need to understand what that means, what add a project.
Capital, so our capital budget has line items, project numbers, related to whatever this says.
So it's not a program, it's actually just considered a project number and
Project number.
and it has money assigned
Yeah,
to
and
it?
allocated, money's allocated to that project.
Okay, all right.
Good question.
I thought there was also, I thought there was already two for greenways and open space.
There's one for Greenland, for program, I think it's tied to just program open space money. Let me have this conversation. We don't, and I can't remember the details, but we don't have
We don't have
we
that.
don't have something that's.
They discuss it and they need it.
So
They
so
don't
it's
have
not a
that.
program, it would be a project line, is what you're saying. In other words, it seems to be if we're trying to acquire land, don't we wanna have an actual ongoing,
Yeah, it'll
line
likely
item?
be a multi-year project for funds are put into it every year, and then individual properties are purchased.
And then it's renewed, or it's renewed?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just
And then it's used to purchase land for conservation,
Okay.
greenways or open space or some
By
other.
setting it up as a project, you actually have a means to pay for it.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Good, thank you. Okay. Improve and protect water quality.
So, we're on that one already.
Wait, did I skip?
Again, continue expanding the network of
Yeah,
corridors.
second policy. Okay.
I'm under goals at a time. Okay, anything else on the second goal?
Can you
Number
explain
three.
the last bullet point, inventory of property? I think I know what you just mentioned. You're basically saying inventory of certified property, those that we deem important, put them into preservation and put them under county ownership for the pieces of earth and industrial. Is that what?
Surplus property, so, might need to clarify because,
Certain surplus properties, county owned.
we.
County already owns
We already
properties.
own them, or the state, so we are have the first right of refusal on state.
State highways or something.
Yeah.
And I don't
So we
know
can
that
It's
clarify.
basically saying whichever we deem them important for these factors,
Yes.
then we should all own them and put them in preservation.
We actually do that anyway, but it, well,
we do that conservation of the-
I can't say it's always done, I mean, what, I'm on the route, when I get routed back, I will look at the GDP or the small area plan and say, you know, this was an area identified for protection and it should be conserved. Whether or not it ends up, ends up coming to fruition, I don't know, but this is, and maybe it just needs to be a better, this says inventory, so our current, this is a little bit, this goes a little bit deeper, this is being proactive.
There's two bills before the county council right now on surplus property. To make sure we check. Okay, anything else on three?
I got, the second sentence from the top on 3, additional points. What are the points? What are they used for? How many points do you have to collect to get a prize?
Where are you?
You're on goal number 3, under strategies number
Page 3. Page 3 top, talks about additional points.
starts with explore, evaluate, and inventory.
Second sentence says additional points for land
Oh, that was.
located in the priority.
Yeah, that was deleted, we already do that. So what that means is if an applicant comes in and wants to put their property in, through the woodland agricultural preservation program that we have, if they're already in our defined priority preservation area, they get extra points. But that's already done, so we deleted that.
That's an example of things that, the average.
But it doesn't exist on
On the revised one, okay.
I think that's.
Again, the background report would have been really helpful, because it's, priority preservation area is, discussed in that report, what it is, how it was defined.
Okay, 5-minute break. It's after 6 o'clock. We have 3 more to go. Okay, going once, going twice, no break?
I'm great.
Yeah.
We don't wanna go over it, so let's reconvene. And we are on goal number 4.
So it doesn't have a number, so.
I numbered them. I never, page 3, improve and protect water quality.
Page 3.
Page 3, the only goal on page 3, improve and protect water quality.
What number is it?
I'm gonna know that.
4. Kristen.
Alex?
Where in here does it talk about, if a property is being developed and there's a violation, that the project can be stopped or protected, corrected, that kind of thing, when things fail, when systems fail?
That's not probably something that would go in the GDP. I mean, that's enforcement, inspections and permits and everything.
That's already in
else.
place.
It is,
Yeah.
so.
Where?
I mean, that sounds to me like an area that this group should suggest corrective action be taken. And that's a real problem.
It is a real problem.
And there's no penalties for when a professional engineer makes a quote mistake, unquote. And that's where I think this is all focused around.
Can you be more specific without naming projects in particular, so I can understand what you're?
Well, I'll give you an example, but that, over in,
Without being specific.
Huh?
Without being specific.
Okay, well, a lot of, best management practices that are required are put in place, and then a heavy rain will come and wash it out, and then, just completely fails. And then they say, well, we did the best, we did what we were required to do.
So I think one way maybe to reword it is that stormwater management practices are updated more frequently, because all the stormwater management, it took us forever to get it through, is up to the current standards. But now that it's gone through, the standards have changed, and therefore we need to continually be changing and upgrading our standards.
That sounds like an enforcement issue.
But it is an
Part of it's an
enforcement.
enforcement issue, part of it's because of the amount of rain that we had last year, and a lot of people are still thinking about
Continue to have.
of that, and
Yeah.
so yeah, you might drive around today and.
Yeah, but it hasn't, with these amount of rain that we've had.
So, so I think we did already on the.
Number
the
3.
Third. Yeah, so the policy, the third policy, under that goal says reduce sediment pollution from active construction sites, and then there's a set of strategies.
I have a question.
Okay.
If it's, is it also enforcement of the active construction site in a different county?
We can't.
Of adjoining counties? But the settlement
Like
is running.
it
through-
straddles,
Yeah.
it goes on that side?
And I'd have to check with inspections and permits, but I don't know.
Do we have any agreements or?
You could call MDE if there's overarching.
Any other questions on 4?
I need an explanation. Implement a new process for transfer of responsibility for maintaining stormwater BMPs from developers to HOAs. How exactly is that, are you talking that's gonna happen with an HOA after the fact?
Yeah.
And,
I think that's
your
what
question,
you're getting at.
Yeah.
I mean,
to come up with something.
Yes.
So, because what you're doing is you're in essence saying, the developer is
is responsible for putting a stormwater management,
The
drains in, that system in when they build, which is fine, and then it's turned over to HOAs. So what happens if that stormwater management best practice changes, and now it's considered, well, now that's
Right,
not,
so right,
that's obsolete
so
or
this is
actually.
an issue that's been identified in the listening sessions and everything.
Yeah.
Pat's not here, but it's one of her community's biggest issues, I think.
I couldn't cover for you.
That, and so that's why this recommendation is in here, because right now, the process that we have doesn't adequately address this.
So this is talking about the responsibility of the community after the fact to keep the drains clean, or is that
Yeah, not
addressing
every,
that?
so, example, a smaller community, 5 homes, maybe can't afford to do, but, maintain.
Yeah.
That there has to be something put in place that makes this work, because that's why some of them are failing.
Well, I know with snow removal, that's a conversation we've had. I'm an association president, that's why I'm asking this question right now.
So that just actually happened with my homeowners association. I'm actually the president of it. And what happened is that, so it benefited us, but the question is, would we have been responsible for it? Is they replaced a development that is being put in further down the road, had a credit for, fee in lieu, and they replaced and improved the drainage out of the pit at the bottom of our system. And one, they didn't notify us, and it was done, so while it benefits us in stormwater management, my question was, is what would have been the cost? Would we have been responsible for it, type of thing? That's why I was kind of interested.
It is a lot about the transfer of knowledge. The developer does it, they design it, they install it,
That's right.
and then, volunteer HOAs come in and have no idea the amount, that their fees need to cover, what is that maintenance, who does it, what's it cost?
Right. And so,
What-
do
yeah,
I
what are
need
you
to
supposed to
pick
do?
up some kind of insurance that
Right.
would cover that if it's a, large?
So,
what
correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, that's what you're trying to get into
We're
this,
trying
is
to
like,
implement
make
a
sure
program.
that something
Yes,
happens to address that.
Yes,
Right.
and
And
then
then
the
still-
water coalition is all over.
And when the
Well, this,
HOA, and you sign the paper and you buy the house, you don't realize that you are an HOA responsible for the trees. And
whether
for
that
everything
swale
else.
behind your yard,
That's
is
right.
actually a bioretention.
And you can't put a
just go fill
playground
it in
on
and
top of
replace
it.
that.
Yes,
Right,
right.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that would be transferred between, each one of the administrations
Right.
of your.
That's right. Because I didn't know anything about this until I started getting involved with the local communities, and then I became the HOA president and this type of thing. So when I bought my house, I have a full acre. Half of my property is a forest conservation, so I can't do anything with it. Not that I would want to, but, it's one of those things where it's mine, but, I understand.
Was that, there's you when you purchased your property?
I didn't understand what it meant.
And most people don't.
Right, until I started really digging into it. For me, it was just a great buffer zone for the next street over, and, I was like, that's cool.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
So I have one to add, under the second policy where it says reduce nutrient loads from on-site septic systems. Add, encourage or when possible require the abandonment of shallow, unconfined water wells to be refilled by current regulations.
You said that one more time. Get rid of shallow wells.
Yes.
Yes,
So is it
it's on the
only,
top.
Is that only for folks that are on site?
Mine doesn't dry out.
Was it any shallow well?
right? Shallow water is better.
It is.
Better.
It is.
Right.
Okay, we'll put well.
Every time I get it.
Okay, going once, number 4, 2,
Say that again? I'm actually,
replace shallow well.
so that means if your shallow well fails,
you're required by the county then to dig a deep well. Okay.
So I would say abandon once it, so are you going to, is that a forcing function? Require the abandonment?
I thought we already just.
They would encourage.
They were encourage or when possible require. And so I have to ask them, why would we not just require?
So at the homeowner's expense or at the county's expense?
Well, it's gonna be the
Homeowner.
these are individual wells.
So drinking water, is that not part of,
Your wells failed, you have to replace it regardless, at your
so
expense.
isn't water sewer, providing access to water sewer power, isn't that well, no, isn't that there's a term, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on it. Well, no, well, not that, but I thought that was a level of responsibility provided, that access has to be provided.
We don't provide access to wells.
Not unless you're public sewer and water. Paying.
Yeah. If
No,
you're
no.
septic on a well, you have to replace it
Are you
yourself.
talking about there is a overarching governmental responsibility to ensure that that they maintain our health, safety, and welfare, like they can't allow things to happen to.
Okay, what do you think about it?
Yeah, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Okay, number 5. Last page. Give everybody a chance to read this.
What?
Ellen.
Yeah, I have two. One, you say evaluate the potential impacts of sea level rise, et cetera, et cetera. That's already done. That's already mapped by DNR. And I would suggest that it's not evaluate, act to address and eliminate the word potential. Act to address the impacts of sea level rise. The other is above that actually, where it says continue assessment of water quality problem areas. Big deal. You want to address them and not continue assessment. You want to address water quality problem areas.
Second one
that
underneath
you've already
strategy.
identified.
Yeah.
So I think the continue to assess, so a water problem, water quality problem there is the health department issue. I think it's more driven towards the private wells we were talking about before. I'm not sure what the health department's ability to actually address those issues, except for potentially requiring deeper wells, as we were talking about.
So we would do nothing about the problem, water
Well,
quality
we-
problem areas?
No, we continue to assess, because certain, like, for example,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
sea level rise, well, we're seeing more saltwater intrusion.
Right.
So that's continuing to
I
assess.
expect
And
that.
so
I
addressing
appreciate all
it
policies,
will be
but the fact of the matter is that if some of these things are not addressed strongly and codified, nothing changes. I'm particularly concerned about number 2. There is nothing in there that would prevent another 40 acres of, multiple acres of forest from being reduced. Nothing. It's all priority, a policy to do this, that, and the other, some of which existed in the past, and we still lost more forest than in any other county. So there's no strength in some of this. That's all I'm saying. That's my concern.
So, for example, water quality problem areas are addressed in our water sewer master plan.
Okay, they're addressed, but
and there's specific requirements. So remember, this plan is a vision plan, and it looks at the big picture and things that we need to do to.
I think I'm looking at the big picture also, and it goes a step further.
And so certain, like, water quality problem areas, we already address what we know now, and they're in the code. There's specific requirements for those areas. It's developing. You're gonna develop in those areas. It's either digging a deeper well or whatever. So it's already addressed, but we need to continue to monitor to make sure that,
Right.
that we don't
Want
have
to be sure
additional
that the county gets the gold star. That's good.
Well, you could say continue to address and, assess and address water quality problems.
I think we just need to have firm plans to relocate and build new wastewater treatment facilities that are gonna be inundated with sea level rise. When that occurs, well, we'll shift up, but we need to have a plan.
I agree, that's why we put that in there. It wasn't, I guess to go to Ellen's point, it wasn't about looking at the, what's the inundation or what sea level is gonna be. It's more of how do we evaluate, how do we look at the infrastructure, what do we need to pick up, move, what do we need to not put in new facilities that are gonna get inundated. So it wasn't really the looking where are we gonna get impacted, but how are we going to improve the stuff that we already have out there, so it doesn't get, so it's still able to operate and work. Does that kind of answer your?
Yeah. It's just, we see this train coming, so it's happening. And I think our time scale is gonna be, will make a call.
I have a question that parallels this, but at what point does the county council have in front of them a map with the impacts of sea level rise on the county? That they can use that information, be educated to that, so that they can make their decisions and policies and amendments with some concrete knowledge in hand about what we're trying to defend and become more resilient.
Well, if they don't get something prior to the plan, there will be something in place, and there'll be maps. That's another thing missing from this document, of not only the background information, but all the maps.
Right.
So,
One of those is projected to one mile.
I keep hearing assessment, evaluate, look at this, look at that. I assume there's a written report coming out of all these different assessments. Who does those reports, are there reports, and who do they get presented to? County council, public forums, or it just get filed in a filing cabinet somewhere?
well, I guess it depends on what it is. In certain things, once we evaluate it, there's a need, we can move forward, sometimes it becomes a capital project, becomes a program, it might be a change in one of our codes.
I mean, if it's something that's being discussed in this committee, then it's important to the community. So how does the community get informed of these assessments that are ongoing?
They inform, a lot of us we have on our website, so more so than ever, we have
So
a lot of our
are you saying
information.
then that these assessments get published onto the website?
A lot too.
What's a lot? 50%?
Yeah, I don't have a number. I mean, again, we're trying to look forward, and in our implementation plan, when we're getting a status, and that status says complete, there could be a link that indicates you've got the report.
So would it be fair to say that your goal looking forward is to publish all the assessments on your website?
Not necessarily, but I don't think we can have a goal of all, because sometimes we'll get a consulting study, and I'm just thinking of
Yeah, so,
our comprehensive water strategic plan.
Well, if it's
Volumes.
consultative survey, you
Yeah.
subcontract, you own the rights to the report.
Correct, but some things are not manageable to be.
Well, just for example, something that we've done with one of the, probably based off the sea level study that we had before, we put emergency generators at all of our pump stations, and we use the sea level information, the rise and likely elevation of the new 100-year floodplain based off of that to actually assess the height of where we're going to put these generators. And so they're actually out there on, some of them are on like 3 or 4 foot platforms, these generators are. It's kind of silly to me a little bit, because we're going to have these pump stations running that are going to be, everything's going to be covered over in water if the next Isabel comes in. But we have reports and studies that happen all the time that will probably fulfill, all these evaluations. There's not, a simple document to stick up there that's going to be, this is the document that answers all these questions. It'll be depending on each project that we look at. We need to set this at this elevation.
And some of them are so technical. I don't even know that, they're available, but whether or not we post them on the web without.
Well, in West County, we have a lot of engineers. We built houses for, so we got tons of engineers that probably could write some of the reports.
Okay, any other
Kind of off
questions?
topic, but.
Yeah, any other questions on 5? Okay, moving on. 6. Create resilient, environmentally sound, and sustainable communities.
I guess on the first policy, improve interdepartmental coordination and outreach to county residents, that seems like 2 different things. Am I not reading, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it is 2 different things, improving our interdepartmental coordination and also improving outreach.
So maybe we should separate that.
If it was an improvement in communication with county residents, then maybe it should be stated in that line. Because that's where I read it at first, is that you're trying to make it so that the departments can talk well enough for the residents' questions to answer them, right? Am I missing the point on that? I know.
I think it's 2 different things.
All right.
Improve interdepartmental coordination, and then in addition, improve our outreach to county departments.
And by outreach,
So county
is it a matter of educating the public?
Notification.
Informing. Oh.
All the above.
Okay, well.
All the above.
And that's where you could include more reports. I mean, having more reports on the website is useful.
I would say this entire goal needs a lot more work. I'll get back.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at this, and I think about the problems with the permit department that other businesses have talked about, it just strikes us the fact that a lot of them don't even want to deal with the county for this, because it's often unclear what the requirements are. So when I bring this up, I'm thinking of all those businesses that said how hard it was to get the project done.
So I'm gonna say improve outreach and communication.
Improved communication should probably be a policy, and then strategy should be broken down by which pieces, like interdepartmental as well as community. Because I think that's more of what's really, so that's actually Alan's point as well. He says, for that policy, he says, this is more like a strategy than a policy. But it sounds more like a policy should be improving communication. And then the strategies would be interdepartmental as well as community outreach.
I agree about the communications part.
But the goal is very, that's another of Alan's points, is I do not really understand the goal here. They are superfluous. Sorry, I can't read.
Superfluous.
No, it's not goals. Superlatives and not goals. What is resilience? Environmentally sound, question mark, and exactly what does sustainable mean? If there is meat to these goals, I recommend separating them into 3 goals.
And also I'm looking at the supporting strategies and continue to pursue innovative funding sources. A little bit more meat to that would be helpful to see where we're trying to look at, or whether this may be grants or what have you, innovative funding. I don't really know what that fully entails.
One of the things we can put in here is doing something about this, if we want to be sustainable. Then we state that we want to be more energy efficient. And we have technologies and such like that. And we state that rather than facilitating and planning. We actually put something we want to do. And some of the details of what we do are known, and some are new technologies that emerge. So we can decrease our energy usage and increase renewables or whatever, some things along that line. We can spell that out. These are not mysteries.
If I could just point of privilege to say that I had a presentation last night down on the American Peninsula, so I did not get a chance to really go through this. This is my thing. So if you just give me a little bit of time, I'll review this. I mean, I think this last goal needs to be just completely broken down and clarified.
That would be helpful.
That's
Right
it.
now, no, I appreciate that.
We got this 2 days ago, and I had another presentation
No,
last
I
night,
know, no, and they've been working on it very hard, like we
I
said,
know.
this isn't
We're
a
all-
lot
we're
they're
all-
going to do.
I mean, our goal is to get these to you at least a weekend before. But because of new staff and everything, these go up to chain of command before they come to you. So that takes a little bit more time, but our goal
We've been
is to
talking
get-
about
Yeah, to get these to you at least the weekend before. And this one wasn't as worried about because we're using 2 meetings to cover land use, we've got 3 set aside. There's a little more to that. They're just goals and policies.
Ellen?
Yeah, I would just add, in this whole section, every single one of these really raises the question of how. How are you gonna do this? What are the new alternative or new innovative approaches? What are the system that you're gonna use for each one of these strategies? So how is the empowering word anyway, and almost everything. You need to know how you're going to accomplish some of this stuff. So,
Kristen?
Yeah, I just wanted some clarification on the process from here on out. So we'll get all of these, this will all be incorporated into another document, and we'll get that, and then we can still make comments next week. Yep. Or next meeting.
Oh, it'll be a liquid, because then it goes on the website too, and
No,
we'll
it's
get,
not going on the website.
not for a while?
No,
Okay.
remember, these are gonna stay a work in progress. As I laid out on the calendar, we'll go through these by topic, that relate to the plan outline. The next really public involvement part is the land use plan, where I said we'll do, the nine public forums to get input on that. But once that's developed, then we'll start refining these goals, policies, strategies and then there'll be an actual document that will go, you'll see it before it goes public review, and that'll go for public review in May, between May and June. And for comment, I mean, at that point,
but I'll be into that. We're not posting them all. I didn't mean to say that we're posting them all one at a time. We're posting them all together. So
Not for several months.
there will be an
Because again,
opportunity
if
to
you're having a difficult
change
time seeing that these out of context of the supporting text and maps and everything, that it's definitely with people that haven't been working on it.
What, I may have missed it, so correct me if I'm wrong. Don't remember reading the words animal or wildlife in here. Did I miss that? I guess not. So the reason
Yes.
the reason I'm kind of,
Again, it's part of our greenways. I mean, that's sort of, that was the, intent of our
I mean,
existing
you're saying it's
greenways.
kind of part of,
It is.
the reason I'm really thinking it needs to be emphasized, there was a wonderful, really great documentary that talked about the relationship of wildlife and Yellowstone Park, and the major impacts bringing wildlife back into the park and how it actually changed the environment. So, what we're seeing is the wildlife is getting pushed out of the county. Up in West County, I mean, the places for deer and groundhogs and foxes and rabbits are starting to, their space is being taken over. And then the public that moves in, they don't want that big animal in their backyard. So it seems like, they're part of the whole ecosystem. It all has to work together. So I think it really needs to be given some thought, just what do we do about all these
Do you
animals?
have a suggestion for a goal and policy strategy? We take care of that through our greenways program. So I don't know, if you have something in addition to that. Again, you can go back to either our greenways plan or the environmental background report and see if it's not already
Can you send me
incorporated.
links to what these things we should be looking at? Because I do have somebody.
They're on our county website.
I do have somebody that has very strong opinions about that, and I'm sure would like to make some suggestions.
all those background reports are on the website.
And so is the current
And
greenway.
Greenway, right, 2002, correct. Ellen, you had a question?
No, I did
No,
that was
I'm sorry.
17 years ago.
I'm sorry. Okay, next thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes, and there have been some amendments, so does somebody want to approve the minutes as amended? They're little things.
I didn't see, I know Catherine had one, just
One?
in addition to two of those.
I think, yeah, I think you had one liner.
One line.
One line, okay. So Elizabeth has moved, anybody second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, the other thing I wanted to make a note of is that there are new critical area maps out. So for those of you particularly who live near or represent the water areas, the, in process. Last night they had a meeting, they had another meeting tonight. They have 2 more coming up. And then it'll go to the county, and then the county will go, it'll go before the county council to approve those maps. So please make note of that and take a look at that. They're all available on the website. And I encourage you, and if you have any questions, you can talk to me, because I went to one of the meetings last night, because I happen to be in a critical area. So that's the first thing. The second thing I wanted to tell you all about, and again, I'll send you the link to, I thought I had, is the update of the community list that is being maintained by community and it's not engagement. Thank you.
Constituent service.
Thank you. CECS. They are in the process of updating that list. It is a nightmare, and it has been, and it always will be, because people change, contacts change, one thing or another. But in the future, they hope to go to all electronic mailing and notices. So it will be key to keep that up. I will send that to you, and then you can send it out to your communities. You all should be receiving your district newsletters. And for some who are interested like me, I get all 7 of them, and I read all of what is happening. It has everything that's happening in the districts, and it's important information. They come out weekly, and I highly encourage you to sign up for those if you're not already on that list. I will again send you those links. Cindy.
One note, on Friday, we intend to, send out like an e-blast to everybody that's interested in this process and sign up on our, e-list that, let them know the vision, statement and vision leads online for comment, and also the region boundaries. Are you okay with that? Not the policy areas. Don't get those confused, not the development policy. These. Hold on.
Update some of the, I still need to update some of the last, Route 7.
Oh, gosh. No, those are the policy areas, not the. Hold on, I have it.
Those won't go to the public for comment until, March. Anyway, the other thing is that we'll also release a land use change application where property owners can request a change in land use.
That would be great.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna get up for.
Please be checking your emails. Please, and Kristen, I need to talk to you afterwards.
I've got it now. Okay.
Okay. Please be checking your emails, and if you want me to send it to a different email, I'm more than happy to, but sometimes I'm sending it to both just to make sure you're reading it. So, let me know. Thank you. Never been a school teacher, lived in the Air Force twice. Any other business? I did want to address that too. Sorry, Cindy's not done
Well,
yet.
are you okay with putting the regions? You're not.
I just need to update, I need to give Kristen some information for, because I did Edgewater and I need to.
She's talking about the map, right?
The nine regions, not the development policy.
Oh, okay, okay.
Not our descriptions of
Oh,
our
okay,
regions,
all right.
just from the map to
Alright,
really
that's fine,
find
I still
out.
need to do that anyway, so the maps are fine.
Yes, the development policy areas we'll continue to work on, and then in March, the policy areas and the land use plan will go out to public review.
I still owe her that.
And those are available, so if you guys wanna come in early and look at those, sorry, we had a group who came in earlier today to do that. So please, cause those.
Looking at the policy.
Right,
Yeah.
it's hard to look online and get those colors, even there, sometimes it's hard to get the colors. So, please, we highly encourage you to do that. So, and I did wanna follow up, okay.
What happened to those reports we made? They'll just be.
Those will be posted online, I think, too, right?
They're already online. So I just want you all to be careful, you are considered a public committee. So when there are more than, half of you, that's considered a quorum, so be careful when you're meeting. It needs to be advertised and then the public does. And that includes email. You can email, but not making decisions. That's something we need to be careful about.
What about our interaction with the county council? Should we discuss anything in general with them?
Let me get a list of the do's and don'ts.
Yeah,
Let me do
because
that.
I've had interfacing with 2 of them so far. And candidly, I haven't said anything.
Because everything here is still in draft mode.
I know.
And I wanted to address, Gary sent you all an email, and some people had already addressed it about having, the State Highway Administration and the coordination and how is what's gonna happen in the GDP work with the state highway administration. We have a lot of challenges with that because obviously they're a different entity, their funding's different, but we have a lot of state roads that come through our county, and, so there was some, replies, I believe, and I didn't know.
Well,
you
I mean,
wanted-
this week was especially, interesting. Elizabeth and I, well, you went and, Pat went to the, presentation over in Laurel about the, revitalization of the park. And I immediately said, man, it's gonna be traffic. Traffic's already an issue over in West County, that's gonna add more to it. So that plus ongoing issues, I mean, we had, Mr. Pittman was in Jessup for the, ribbon cutting of the school. The state and the county were 2 days before that ribbon cutting, before they had an agreement to provide a driveway to the school. So we have a serious lack of communications and cooperation that I've seen. You know, things like Jessup, you know, what do we do? Well, we don't have transparency on what their plans are for the major road in that area, 175. So it's time, you know, Pittman raised the issue that, you know, how silly that was that these two organizations couldn't get together. I mean, when the school opened, I don't know what they would have done, you know? But, so we feel for the West County and the Patricia down in Crofton and Overton, we have issues. I was surprised it did not get more responses, but the three of us feel like it would be very useful to have a frank discussion with those, like how are we gonna work together? How are you gonna support the GDP that we're trying to write? So, you know, I ran into Mr. Pittman on Monday. He pointed me to a gentleman that works for him, and he just needs the word, and he'll make it happen. So.
Who did he refer you to?
Oh,
Reese.
Ben.
Ben Burge.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think.
Well, I can tell you, and I would love to work with you on that, and I know Pat would. I mean, sometimes it is hitting your head against the wall. I'll just pre-warn you, because we have been, you know, on the Broad Neck Peninsula, we have every traffic conflict that we can have in the last 4 weeks, and it's gone to the governor, and we haven't gotten any response except for about, you know, until today from the governor. So we will certainly pursue it and see.
Well, I mean, banging your head against the wall comes to the territories you've been dealing with land use and zoning issues in the county, so that's nothing new for me. I think it would be useful for us, at least, I mean, is there anybody else here that has issues with state highway? Warren?
Was it 214?
Well, that's why I responded today, because I feel that the state is not going to respond to us as a group, if we're sitting here I don't wanna use the word demanding of them, how are you gonna work with us? I think if we go to them and ask them the questions that I posted in the response of how does the state prioritize, how do they fund, how do they, you know, with those kinds of questions, I think we're more likely to get positive responses and positive interaction with them.
I didn't see your post, but I mean,
Oh, okay.
you wanna put a suggestion on the agenda and the topics for the meeting that we want them to address, that would be the best way to go.
Well, I mean, that's.
And I think we need
if
to
you guys-
work with our state representatives
Yeah.
in order to
Do we feel
facilitate
it's
it.
needed, necessary?
Because
I think it would, when we discuss transportation, I mean, that's the time to talk about that, how that is, you know, that is definitely a strategy.
Because I think I think we'll have better success working the state into our plan if we know how they function, as opposed to trying to get them to work with us. If we work with them in their system.
And it also helps to have a plan that's adopted,
Yes.
that lays out priorities, and then a capital improvement program.
Right.
Well, each year we provide a priority letter.
That's correct.
But that letter should relate back to our DEPs or the region plans.
And that's just
So
going
that's-
forward.
And that helps lead you with consistency.
How far out does the State Highway Administration plan out anyway? In other words, we're doing a 20-year plan right now.
20 years.
They
So
have,
that,
they have a.
are they in the middle of it?
It's
Are you-
online. Maryland,
Okay,
They're
MDOT
process-
2040.
Yeah, they're in the
It's online.
process of updating.
like us, okay.
Yep.
And they also have, their capital budget.
Okay.
And I can tell you, when I met with them, they said that they had no plans for the Rodneck Peninsula, particularly for Route 2, because there was a letter that went to Piedmont about widening Route 2. And, they said that they had no plans to do anything. But then we got the letter 2 weeks later that said that they were doing a study on Route 2. So, it's a personal challenge of me for me to get answers.
Okay.
I can add that to my list.
The last time that I set up a meeting with the State Highway and the county folks, it was an eye opener. They don't talk to one another. They were thanking me for setting it up because they learned a lot that they hadn't even known about. So I think there's a benefit to us as community leaders, and it's a benefit to them because from my experience and their comments, they weren't aware of things that were going on in our particular area. So if we don't meet as a group here, I would still suggest if you're involved in your community associations or HOAs, you set up some kind of a meeting and get to know the people.
And you all have district representatives,
Yeah.
which are different than your other districts. You all have SHA district representatives.
But I think understanding at a high level of their processes, how they would interface with us, what, and I can't really tell him his name, but if he has a agenda of topics and present that, this is what we would like to be educated on, I think that would be very useful. So I guess the bottom line is, are we gonna move forward with that as a group or individually?
When we have transportation.
Yeah, suggested when we discuss transportation goal strategies and policies, that would be the one.
And when is that?
That is on the calendar waiting towards, January.
Let's see.
So, as a courtesy to them, we ought to give them as much time to schedule, the meeting, so.
Well, it wouldn't be a meeting with them at that point. It's how we will address coordination and better communication.
Well, that's kind of what you want them to talk about then.
January 15th. Is transportation, so. We can follow up. I will follow up with the county representative first. And then, they have had meetings, I mean, this is totally different subject than the whole Gray Bridge fiasco. So, hopefully they'll come.
Well,
Say
let
in
us-
2020, they're not gonna come in 19.
Let us know the ones of us from crossing West County, because if we can't or don't, then we need to do it for our areas.
Do our plans get coordinated through the Baltimore Metropolitan Planning Council?
Yes.
So that's another place you can go to get some information, because I think they put together a long-range plan, a priority plan, and then a funding plan that goes along with it, that the state has to have.
And those are MDOT online now, because their plan is online. So if you're interested to see what their plan is, it's there. And if you want a copy of our priority letter that we sent to them, I'm more than happy to give that to you. It should be online as well.
I think it's online.
It's online, that's what I was just
I
thinking.
think it's both in county's website as well as MDOT's website.
Good. Anything else? Yes, Gary? Last word.
So I tend to be real vocal, I guess some of you discovered that, and real passionate about this. If you want to understand where I'm coming from, I would recommend this book. It's called Better, Not Bigger. And it was written by a fellow who grew up in the farm country up in western Maryland. And it really, I haven't gotten all the way through it, but what I've seen so far is like, man, I could have wrote that book myself. So if you want to see where I'm coming from, better understand me, I would highly recommend getting a copy of this book. Apparently it's very limited copies out there. The gentleman currently is fighting cancer, but people are getting them from Amazon. So the editor, the author is Eben, E-B-E-N, and the last name is Fodor, F-O-D-O-R. I highly recommend it.
Thank you, appreciate it. Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor? We will see you on Halloween, October 30th, sorry.
I was like, can we put in costumes?
October 30th.
I will be there.
Okay. I'll try to remember that.
I'm just letting you know.
All right.